Hi, this is Liam again with my Dynamic Alignment Bodywork channel, and this video is definitely a part of that, but this is also kind of a special video as part of an Indiegogo campaign where I'm looking around for contributors who will contribute to this campaign to send me to a 5-day fresh tissue cadaver dissection lab. And in return, one of the things I'm kind of highlighting is an online class that I'll teach after the lab in the spring. So one of the things I wanted to share more about that class, you can read about it on the campaign page if you haven't already, but one example of the anatomy of connection, which is what I'm calling the class, at least tentatively for now, but a lot of the anatomy of how we are interconnected and how that's not just like a nice or kind of neat new agey idea, but the real anatomy and physiology of that, as opposed to just discrete parts, kind of the liver doing its liver thing and the cranium doing its cranial thing, which is true to a certain extent, but really how these things work together. So we can talk about this in a lot of different ways, but one way I wanted to sort of highlight today or talk about is just a super straight up biomechanical way, and that is, or example, and that is about knees. Not to badmouth anyone doing good work with working with a knee directly, but I would say if someone walks in with knee pain, to look at their knee and start treating their knee, it seems crazy to me to have that be at least a default mode, because here's a joint in the middle of these two huge levers, long levers, right? The femur, the upper leg bone, and the tibia, and of course the fibula on the side, but the lower leg bones. And if imagine being tight in your hip, maybe you don't have to imagine, but imagine being tight in your hip or your ankle or both, right? Restriction on what they call the proximal and distal ends, the ones farther away from the knee. Restriction there is going to hugely translate to torque and pain and dysfunction. So I often think of the knee as like the fall guy of us structurally. Maybe one of a few, but it's a pretty classic example of knee pain is ubiquitous out there. And yeah, maybe you need corticosteroids and maybe you need ibuprofen or you being whoever. But for a lot of us, starting to clear up some of the mobility issues in your hips and ankles, much less the sort of, the global interconnected nature of our body, but really specifically look one joint up and one set of joints, in this case down, to the hip and the ankle, and start to gain more mobility there. And lots of times pretty intense knee issues can really start to clear up, even more like arthritic ones, which we could think of, maybe more sort of like in terms of Chinese medicine, sort of a problem of congestion. And you can call that qi or the fluids or whatever, just something kind of being stuck from being not moving well, from the other ends of those two levers being stuck. So like always, like all these videos, because that's not just how I see the body. This isn't a real, if you have knee pain, do this. But it's a huge thing to wrap your head around if it's not already, for you, or having conversations with people, or offering to help, that if we're talking about knee pain or knee dysfunction, to not immediately go to someone's hip and ankle and look at that, I think is crazy. Maybe you have a good reason for it, but those would sure be the first places I would look. So hope this helps. Check out the campaign if you'd like. Yeah, so I'm doing an hour-ish online class, and it won't just be me sitting in my office rambling. I will really plan out this class well and have some visuals and maybe even some online PDF stuff for you to access. But that would be an example of something, how the anatomy of how we're interconnected, how you can take that as an example of oh, here's how that applies. So that would be an example of something that might be in the class. With better visuals than just my arm. Maybe. Actually, I think that's pretty good because they are just long levers. Anyway, have a beautiful day. And again, if you want to kick into the campaign, thanks. And I sure hope it benefits you as well.